Yes, send a reminder or some indication.
Yes, Pooja, I'll send a reminder. Pooja, live streaming started. You can start, I'll send the reminder.
अथ पञ्चमोऽध्यायः सन्न्यासयोगः। अर्जुन उवाच सन्न्यासं कर्मणां कृष्ण पुनर्योगं च शंससि यच्छ्रेय एतयोरेकं तन्मे ब्रूहि सुनिश्चितम्। श्रीभगवानुवाच सन्न्यासः कर्मयोगश्च निःश्रेयसकरावुभौ तयोस्तु कर्म सन्न्यासात् कर्मयोगो विशिष्यते। ज्ञेयः स नित्यसन्न्यासी यो न द्वेष्टि न काङ्क्षति निर्द्वन्द्वो हि महाबाहो सुखं बन्धात् प्रमुच्यते। साङ्ख्ययोगौ पृथक् बालाः प्रवदन्ति न पण्डिताः एकमप्यास्थितः सम्यक् उभयोर्विन्दते फलम्। यत्साङ्ख्यैः प्राप्यते स्थानं तद्योगैरपि गम्यते। एकं साङ्ख्यं च योगं च यः पश्यति स पश्यति। सन्न्यासस्तु महाबाहो दुःखमाप्तुमयोगतः योगयुक्तो मुनिर्ब्रह्म न चिरेणाधिगच्छति। योगयुक्तो विशुद्धात्मा विजितात्मा जितेन्द्रियः सर्वभूतात्मभूतात्मा कुर्वन्नपि न लिप्यते। नैव किञ्चित् करोमीति युक्तो मन्येत तत्त्ववित्। पश्यन् शृण्वन् स्पृशन् जिघ्रन् नश्नन् गच्छन् स्वपन् श्वसन् प्रलपन् विसृजन् गृह्णन् उन्मिषन् निमिषन्नपि इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेषु वर्तन्त इति धारयन् ब्रह्मण्याधाय कर्माणि सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा करोति यः लिप्यते न स पापेन पद्मपत्रमिवाम्भसा। कायेन मनसा बुद्ध्या केवलैरिन्द्रियैरपि योगिनः कर्म कुर्वन्ति सङ्गं त्यक्त्वात्मशुद्धये। युक्तः कर्मफलं त्यक्त्वा शान्तिमाप्नोति नैष्ठिकीम्। अयुक्तः कामकारेण फले सक्तो निबध्यते। सर्वकर्माणि मनसा सन्न्यस्यास्ते सुखं वशी। नवद्वारे पुरे देही नैव कुर्वन्न कारयन् न कर्तृत्वं न कर्माणि लोकस्य सृजति प्रभुः। न कर्मफलसंयोगं स्वभावस्तु प्रवर्तते। नादत्ते कस्यचित् पापं न चैव सुकृतं विभुः। अज्ञानेनावृतं ज्ञानं तेन मुह्यन्ति जन्तवः। ज्ञानेन तु तदज्ञानं येषां नाशितमात्मनः तेषामादित्यवज्ञानं प्रकाशयति तत्परम्। तद्बुद्धयस्तदात्मानस्तन्निष्ठास्तत्परायणाः गच्छन्त्य पुनरावृत्तिं ज्ञाननिर्धूतकल्मषाः। विद्याविनयसम्पन्ने ब्राह्मणे गविहस्तिनि शुनि चैव श्वपाके च पण्डिताः समदर्शिनः। इहैव तैर्जितः सर्गो येषां साम्ये स्थितं मनः निर्दोषं हि समं ब्रह्म तस्मात् ब्रह्मणि ते स्थिताः न प्रहृष्येत् प्रियं प्राप्य नोद्विजेत् प्राप्य च प्रियम् स्थिरबुद्धिरसम्मूढो ब्रह्मविद् ब्रह्मणि स्थितः बाह्यस्पर्शेष्वसक्तात्मा विन्दत्यात्मनि यत्सुखम् स ब्रह्मयोगयुक्तात्मा सुखमक्षयमश्नुते ये हि संस्पर्शजा भोगा दुःखयोनय एव ते आद्यन्तवन्तः कौन्तेय न तेषु रमते बुधः शक्नोति हैव यः सोढुम् प्राक्शरीरविमोक्षणात् कामक्रोधोद्भवम् वेगम् स युक्तः स सुखी नरः योऽन्तः सुखोऽन्तरारामस्तथान्तर्ज्योतिरेव यः स योगी ब्रह्मनिर्वाणम् ब्रह्मभूतोऽधिगच्छति लभन्ते ब्रह्मनिर्वाणम् ऋषयः क्षीणकल्मषाः छिन्नद्वैधायतात्मानः सर्वभूतहिते रताः कामक्रोधवियुक्तानां यतीनां यतचेतसाम् अभितो ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं वर्तते विदितात्मनाम् स्पर्शान् कृत्वा बहिर्बाह्यांश्चक्षुश्चैवान्तरे भ्रुवोः प्राणापानौ समौ कृत्वा नासाभ्यन्तरचारिणौ यतेन्द्रियमनो बुद्धिर्मुनिर्मोक्षपरायणः विगतेच्छाभयक्रोधो यः सदा मुक्त एव सः भोक्तारं यज्ञतपसां सर्वलोकमहेश्वरम् सुहृदं सर्वभूतानां ज्ञात्वा मां शान्तिमृच्छति ॐ तत्सदिति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे संन्यासयोगो नाम पञ्चमोऽध्यायः।
Hare Krishna, welcome you all for this 7th session on the course Life Lessons from Bhagavad Gita. Today we'll be doing chapter 5, Karma Yoga, Action and Krishna Consciousness. We'll begin with the invocation. Can you see and hear me properly? Sorry.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gnananjanashrakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Shnapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapa Kadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamadam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sadvijatam Sagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijanasahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishatan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dhinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastude Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhi Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanaswati Devi Pranamami Hri Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhyev cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this is one of the shortest chapters, a very important chapter. So can you see my presentation?
Yes, Prabhuji.
So how a Krishna conscious person can act in this world, that is being explained in this chapter. Because normally we think that if we become a devotee, we cannot function properly in this world. Or for those who cannot function properly in the world, they take to devotion. But here we see how a Krishna conscious person is perfectly active. So in the earlier chapter, Lord told Arjuna that all kinds of sacrificial work culminate in knowledge. In other words, your work should lead you to knowledge. Whatever work you do, you should learn something from that. But that work has to be done as a sacrifice. In other words, the work should be done to please someone, a superior authority. But at the end of the fourth chapter, the Lord advised Arjuna to, at the same time, rise and fight. That is, he is telling him to perform his duty of a Kshatriya. So, and then Krishna says, being situated in perfect knowledge. So simultaneously stressing the importance of both work in devotion and inaction in knowledge. In other words, Arjuna is confused how someone can be cultivating knowledge at the same time be working. For example, you are doing studies, and normally a person who is doing studies cannot be employed in some work simultaneously. If he does that, neither he will be able to do his work properly nor his studies properly. So something like that, Arjuna is confused. So Krishna has perplexed Arjuna and confused his determination. So this is a kind of a summary. So Arjuna's question is whether he should renounce work or engage in unattached work. That is, sannyasa means he thinks karma sannyas. Karma sannyas means to renounce work. Because the moment you work, you become attached to the work and the results. You think I have done the work, so I have to enjoy the result. So naturally, it is not possible to give up attachment to the work. So one may think that better to not do the work. So that's what Arjuna thinks is sannyas. At the same time, Krishna has instructed him in the previous chapter, third chapter, that he should engage in karma yoga. And he gave many reasons as to why even the liberated people are engaging in karma yoga to set an example and to guide others. That is known as Nishkama karma yoga, that is without attachment to the results. That is, you do the work, you get the result, but you use it properly instead of enjoying it all for yourself. Now, Arjuna's question is, which is better? That is, to renounce work or working with detachment. Now, then Krishna tells how karma yoga is equal to but easier than compared to sannyasa. Karma yoga can also give an same result, but it is easier to perform because artificially one cannot give up attachment to the work or the results. So that has to come naturally. Renunciation and working in the spirit of renunciation are same. Spirit of renunciation means you are still doing work, but you are not trying to enjoy the results for yourself. But for Arjuna, working is better because premature renunciation is distressful. Just like all of us are engaged in some occupation. And we know that whatever work we are doing, we are getting some good results as well as some unpleasant things are happening. So sometimes we get artificially renounced and say, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. How much ever I try, I'm not getting the results I want, or have to undergo so much struggle. So artificially, momentarily, we want to renounce. We want to give up the job. We want to give up the responsibilities in life. But we see it is not possible also. So therefore, Krishna says it is better to continue performing your duty and gradually develop detachment through knowledge and devotion. Then Krishna talks about performing Nishkama Karma Yoga. That Nishkama means, Sakama Karma Yoga means you are doing the activity with the intention of enjoying the results. but still you are doing the activity according to the rules and regulations. One step higher is you understand that I am not the only doer. So naturally, I cannot enjoy all the results for myself. So I will learn to be detached. And this way, we will not be bound by the three modes, because whatever action we are doing, we are taking help from the three modes. So the result is also going to become obligatory. It binds us in many different ways. So Krishna talks about the characteristics of a yoga yukta. Yoga yukta means he is always connected with a higher purpose in life. He is never entangled and self-controlled. Does not Krishna distinguishes between who is a doer and who is not the doer. That is, supposing you have done some activity. So what is the motive behind the activity? That will determine whether you should be implicated. Supposing you hit someone and that person dies. One person will argue, no, I did it out of self-defense. Other person will argue, no, it was intentional. So then you have to prove that it was not intentional and it was defensive. So like that, we are all the time doing some activity and we are suffering or enjoying the consequences. So if we give up this doership mentality, then we will not be affected by the results. So then what is the way out is to work for the supreme with detachment. Always you keep the highest goal in mind. Then when you are working towards that highest goal, even if there are some ups and downs, they can be set right gradually. So ultimately, the work should be done for purification. What is the contamination? The contamination is the three modes, Sattva, Raja and Tamo Guna, which make us think that I am the doer, I am the enjoyer, I am the controller. But once we learn to work for a higher cause, then it gradually, that work itself acts as a purification. But otherwise, the same work will become a contamination for the consciousness. We become so stressed out by the work, thinking that I am the doer, I am the enjoyer. So this way we can attain peace. Peace means we become harmonious with our consciousness. We are not acting anymore against our consciousness. So therefore, Krishna talks about the three doers. Any action is there. There are three important doers. One is the living entity, and then there's the material nature, and there's the Supreme Lord. Or if all three are together only, these are the minimum requirements for doing any action. Later we'll see in the 18th chapter that there is a body is required, that is the place of action, and the senses are required, that is the instruments of action. Now ignorance bewilders the soul while knowledge enlightens. What is ignorance? When we don't know that these are the three doers, that is the living entity, the Supreme Lord and material nature. If you know about this, then that is knowledge. And if you don't know this, then it's said to be ignorance. So ignorance causes suffering and knowledge causes bliss. So how do we get free from the influence of the three modes? How to give up this doership mentality? We have to focus on the Supreme. We should always remember that whatever I am able to do is because of the help of this Supreme Person. And who has created this material nature, he has created other living entities. So what are the symptoms of such a self-realized person? He is focusing on the Supreme, making him and makes him, he becomes equipoised. Equipoised means he is not affected by the dualities which are produced by the three modes. And attains Brahman platform. Brahman platform means he understands his identity as one with that of the Lord in terms of qualitatively oneness. Me and the Supreme Lord are one in quality. That is, we are eternal. Now, sense enjoyment is distressful. The more you try to satisfy your senses, the more you become dissatisfied. And so, therefore, one should learn to tolerate agitations with the till the end of life. So, what is end of life? Actually, the soul has no end. It will. End of life means giving up this body permanently, subtle body and gross body. So till that time, there will be agitations and we have to tolerate that agitations through knowledge. How does he develop this tolerance by delighting in inwards through by attaining the Brahmabhuta stage. That is, he should get happiness from within instead of trying to search for happiness outside. We should get happiness by knowing about ourselves, our relationship with God, and this material nature. In conclusion, Krishna talks about how to attain liberation, how to attain peace, happiness through knowledge. Liberation through Ashtanga Yoga. He gives a brief preview of the process of Ashtanga Yoga, eightfold yoga system, that is yama, niyama, do's and don'ts, and then asana, sitting posture, pranayama, breathing exercise, pratyahara, regulating your eating and other habits, dharana, jnana, and samadhi. So meditation and deep meditation. Now, in conclusion, Krishna talks about how to attain peace or how to perfect your yoga practice, and that is through knowing Krishna, or he introduces one to Bhakti Yoga. Now, in the previous chapter, Krishna spoke of attaining peace by Jnana. Supposing a person is too much agitated in his work, if you give him sufficient knowledge, then he is likely to be more peaceful. He's able to understand what he's doing, why he's doing, how he should be doing. So therefore Krishna spoke about attaining peace by Jnana and renouncing karma by Jnana. What is this? Renouncing karma means we cannot avoid work. The moment we get a body, we have to do work. Obviously, we cannot stop work. So then what does renouncing karma means? Renouncing the mentality that I am the only doer, I am the enjoyer, I am the controller. This mentality should be given up. Supposing the cashier thinks that he is the bank manager, that is a misconception. He cannot think that all the currency notes are coming to my hand, so it belongs to me, or I'm counting more than doing more work than the manager, so I need to be paid more. So this is a attachment. But one should renounce means we should do work with proper knowledge. But again, Krishna he asked Arjuna to take up karma yoga. So therefore, Arjuna is confused. What is it I should give up and what is it I should take up? So Arjuna found it impossible to perform both renunciation of work, karma sannyasa, knowledge, jnana, and working with detachment, karma yoga, simultaneously. The same example I gave. Supposing a person is studying and simultaneously tries to do work, neither he is able to focus on the work nor on the studies. But as one becomes experienced, we see there are people who do that. They're able to do that. But in the beginning stages, Arjuna is getting bewildered as to how both are possible, how you can do work and as well as acquire knowledge. So in this chapter, Arjuna asking Krishna about the above contradiction, and Krishna explains how renunciation and work are not opposite. In other words, one may ask how I can do my devotion as well as live in this world. So that is a common challenge we face. We think that if I am a devotee, I cannot survive in this world. If I have to survive in this world, I cannot be a devotee. Because we see all around us, people are going against all the principles. They are not following any rules and regulations. But still they are very successful. They are more happy. And I am doing devotion. I am following the rules, but it looks like I am the loser. So, but here Krishna says how both can be integrated, how knowledge and devotion and karma, jnana and bhakti can all be integrated properly. So Krishna will explain the process of Nishkama Karma Yoga. That is, just a minute. So he explains the process of achieving liberation through Karma Yoga. One type of Karma Yoga, it can lead to bondage. Bondage is in the sense it will elevate you to higher planets, then bring you down. But if you do the same Karma Yoga with the knowledge as given in the 4th chapter, then whatever activities you do, that will purify you and elevate you. So now we come back to the first words of this chapter. where Arjuna is asking about sannyasa, whether he should renounce work or work with detachment. Oh Krishna, you asked me to renounce work, sannyasa, because Arjuna thinks that when we cultivate knowledge, we will become detached from work itself. But that was not the point being made by Krishna. He is saying Arjuna to detach from the attachment to the results, not to the work. And please tell me definitely which is better, this or that. He thinks that both cannot be done simultaneously. So, but later Krishna says this question by Arjuna is similar to the question in earlier chapter also, where Krishna had instructed Arjuna about the knowledge of the soul and the body. So if I am the soul, why I have to work for the body? That was Arjuna's question. Arjuna thought that sannyasa should be altogether free from all kinds of activity. Normally, if we talk to people about sannyasa, they immediately say it is not for me. It is not my cup of tea. Why are you asking me to sannyasa? It is far away. I am not at all interested in sannyasa. But later we see in the 18th chapter, Krishna says that you have to renounce. As long as you don't renounce, as long as you don't practice sannyasa, you can never be happy in whatever stage, even if you are, say, I'm a married man, or if you say, I have so many duties to perform. Unless you learn to practice sannyasa from the beginning of life, you are not going to be successful if you want to think about being happy. So, but normally people, when they talk about sannyasa, renouncing, they say immediately giving up something. I will lose something. I have to give up my family, give up my job. I have to go to the forest. I have to wear some saffron dress, shave my head. So that is what Arjuna is thinking, that uh, because work and renunciation appear to be mutually incompatible to him, how can a sannyasi be very active, a responsible member of the society? So this is what is his question. However, detached work in full knowledge and renunciation are not contradictory and are thus the same as inaction. So because we saw in the 4th chapter about action and inaction. Action means any action which will produce a reaction which may or may not be to our liking. And inaction means you are still doing action, but the results will not affect you. They don't hamper your doing your duties. So the basic point is, with got knowledge, whether you are able to do that work in full knowledge, then Krishna actually recommends the spirit of renunciation in work. That is sannyasa in karma. That is basically do work with detachment, but not renunciation of work as sannyasa of karma. He's not asking Arjuna to give up work. He's not asking Arjuna to give up his Kshatriya duties, give up his fighting. Rather, he's telling him to fight with the devotion. Whatever he is doing, you do it with devotion. That was Krishna's point. Performing work with renunciation is superior to inaction with the knowledge. Some people try to avoid work, giving some intelligent reasoning. They keep on analyzing and saying that I will do this work, I will not do this work. This is how they conduct themselves. But performing work with renunciation, in other words, performing work for a higher purpose, thus karma is superior to jnana. So knowledge should lead to better work. Knowledge should not lead you to avoid work. Some people try to avoid work because they go for higher studies because they don't like to work in a 9 to 5 job or something like that. They think that they better go for higher studies. So, but karma is superior to jnana. In other words, knowledge should lead to better work. Some people go for higher qualification so that they can do a better job. So Krishna will explain this deeply in this chapter. The Krishna first of all says that karma yoga is equal to but easier than sannyasa. It is much more easier to do work than give up work. Idle mind, devil's workshop, we have heard that. So karma yoga is better. Renunciation of work, karma sannyasa, and working with the detachment, karma yoga, are both good for liberation. But of the two, karma yoga is better. So why, that will be explained. Why it is more difficult to give up work? Because Earlier also Krishna says, Swadharmam hi nidanam shreya paradharmo bhayavaha. If someone thinks that my work is difficult, so I will take up some other job, that is not intelligent. So Krishna will explain like this: if you keep on changing jobs, some people are there, they keep on changing jobs, they are never satisfied. And so what is the problem with that? Sannyasam karma yogascha nishreyasa karabhubhau tayostu karmana karma sannyasat karma yogo vishishyate. Vishishyate means superior, better. As long as the heart is not purified. So what is the problem? Problem doesn't like the work we are doing. The problem lies in our consciousness. So as long as the heart is not purified, because the consciousness is superior to the intelligence, mind, senses, and sense objects. So the problem is at the top, not at the bottom. As long as the heart is not purified, one has to work on the fruitive platform. In other words, you have to start from the beginning, bottom. Although the problem is the top, you have to start from the bottom. But action in Krishna consciousness automatically helps one escape the result of fruitive action. So, depending on our consciousness, we can even change the result of the activity or even change the effect of the activity result on us, so that one need not descend to the material platform. Just like if you are situated on the boat, actually the boat is contacting the water, but you are remaining untouched, and you're able to cross the ocean with the same boat which is contacting the ocean. So like that, therefore, action in Krishna consciousness is superior to renunciation, which entails a risk of falling. So it's better to elevate your consciousness and continue to do the work than to avoid work, because the moment you avoid work, after some time you will be forced to do the same work. There are many instances like this, where people try to avoid work and they are helplessly doing the same thing which they didn't like to do. So now Karma Yogi can be, how a Karma Yogi can be a sannyasi. See, in our whole life, if you see, we're accepting something and giving up something. So the sannyasa is not inevitable. So Jnayasa Nitya Sannyasi, by constant sannyas or renunciation. Who is a constant sannyasi? Nitya sannyasi. Jo na tveshti na kamshati, who neither hates nor desires the fruits of his actions. He knows very well that I have a right to perform duty, but not to the results. I cannot dictate the results. I can only decide on what to do and what not to do. That much only I have. So therefore, he neither hates nor desires the fruits of his action. Nirdvandvo hi mahabaho. So how is that possible? One should be free from dualities. What is freedom from duality? Means you very much realize that these dualities are being produced by the three modes. I have nothing to do with these dualities. Mahabahu, Krishna encourages Arjuna as mighty armed, which means you can solve this problem. Don't think that this is not problem, cannot be solved. Sukham bandhat pramuchyate. See, he can easily overcome bondage and be liberated. So what is how to overcome this bondage to the three modes? One should understand that factually nothing belongs to anyone. This is the important point. That's what Alexander, when he was dying, he said, I came with nothing, I'm going with nothing. So we have only entitled to use what is given to us. That is only. One should understand that factually nothing belongs to anyone. Then where is the question of renunciation? If something doesn't belong to me, how can I give it up? I can at the most use it. Karma Yoga and Sannyasa are the same. So if you are able to work with the detachment, that's as good as Sannyasa or sacrifice. Sacrifice means you should get some benefit out of the work you do. Only the ignorant say that Sankhya, analytical study of material world, or Jnana or Karma Sannyasa, and Yoga, Karma Yoga are different. So some people think that we have to just analyze this word. By analyzing this world, we have to accept something, reject something, accept, reject. This is what they think. That is intelligence. They think we are intelligent if we learn to accept and reject. That's known as Sankhya, analytical study, the material world. Okay, this is giving me some problem, so I will avoid it. This is giving me happiness, so I will do this. So they want to become expert in this, and they think they are jnanis, yogis, with the knowledge, acting with knowledge. And some people think that I better avoid some works. So, but here Krishna is recommending karma yoga. Performing one of these completely, one attains the results of both. Whichever way you try, you have to eventually come to doing work only, cannot avoid work. One who sees both of them in the same level is the actual seer. Sankhya Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma, Sannyasa. Sankhya means to analytically study the material world, the material body, and the soul. Analysis of the temporary material world leads to detachment from matter and material action. So if you analyze the things in this world, doesn't mean that you can stop work. Only it makes you tolerant of the what is happening in this world. Such knowledge, jnana, ultimately leads one to find the root of all existence, which is the Supreme Lord. So once you start appreciating the world, instead of rejecting the world or blaming things in the world, if you accept the things in this world for what they are and understand its relationship with God, then we will be a better player. So Nishkama Karma Yoga, in such perfect knowledge that one is not the material body but spirit soul, a part and parcel of the Supreme. So that is what will help us to develop this detachment. First of all, to understand that I am the soul and not the body. At the same time, I am as part and parcel of the Lord. I have a relationship with the Lord. And this material nature is also working under the Lord's control. So, and one wants to render service, just like watering the root of the tree or feeding food to the stomach. We know the entire body is nourished, the entire tree gets nourished. So one person is fully convinced that if I do my devotion, I will be doing justice to myself, to others, and I can live in harmony with this material nature. So knowledge or renunciation alone are not sufficient for liberation. In other words, just doing work or cultivating knowledge is not sufficient. One has to have devotion. One should recognize the presence of the Lord and our relationship and act in that relationship. And then only this knowledge and action will be fruitful. So better than stopping work is to continue to do work with knowledge. So after describing the superiority of devotional service, Krishna explains how to work devotionally with the detachment. So one in knowledge of Krishna understands his incompatibility with the material nature and thus acts only for purification, giving the results of his work to Krishna. So whatever work we do, when we do it as in the spirit of devotion, then the same work which is binding us will liberate us. Thus he remains unattached, performing work as a matter of duty. The same example, a soldier is there, he is fighting for the country. He is shooting people and killing people. But the terrorist also doing the same thing, but one is doing for himself and another is doing for the government. The transcendentalist who works with the detachment has knowledge of the relationship between the living entity, material nature, and the super soul. So what is detachment? Detachment means instead of working for a lower category, you work for a higher purpose. Although the modes of nature or the super soul may appear to be the cause of action and reaction, they are not responsible. So ultimately, we have to accept responsibility in this world. When the living entity desires to enjoy material nature, the modes carry out the necessary actions with the permission of the Super Soul. So how is activity being done in this world? That is also being explained. So when we do work with detachment, we can overcome the influence of the three modes. So this one who is in knowledge understands his incompatibility with material nature, because we are the spirit soul and this material nature is not conscious, Achit, Asat and Nirananda. And he acts only for purification unattached to material results. So he knows the limits of this material world and he doesn't try to stretch those limits. Rather, he tries to work within those limits with proper knowledge and devotion. So what are the characteristics of such a yoga yukta? How do we know his goal is fixed, proper goal in mind? Yoga yukto vishuddhatma vijitatma jitendriyaha sarva bhutatma kurvan api na lipyate. It's a very important verse. One who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses. He is dear to everyone and everyone is dear to him. So if you work with the devotion, what is the advantage is you are liked by everyone and everyone likes you. I mean, you like everyone. So though always working, he is never entangled. Because what is causing problem in this world is when we don't understand our relationship with other living entities or our relationship with this material nature. But once we see the relationship of the material nature and other living entities to us and the Supreme Lord, then we are able to act harmoniously. The same world which appears to be a problem becomes a solution. A Yoga Yukta cannot think of any living being as separate from Lord Krishna, just as the leaves and branches of a tree are not separate from the tree. In the tree, actually, the most important thing is the fruit or the wood. Sometimes some trees are grown to get the wood from that, some are grown for the fruits or the flowers. But those fruits or flowers don't come by themselves. They are working as a unit. The roots are there, the tree trunk is there, the branches are there, the twigs are there, all are required. He knows very well that by watering the root of the tree, the water will be distributed to all the leaves and branches. Thus, he is very dear to everyone. So because he is able to satisfy the Lord, he is able to satisfy every living entity. So Krishna now talks about the Jitendriya, or detached sense-controlled worker. What is sense-control means? You are able to use the senses properly. Whatever you see, smell, taste, and touch, you are able to analyze them and use the working senses properly, like hands, legs, digestive, reproductive system, and the talking sense. So first is one should realize that he is not the only doer. A knower of truth, Tattvavit or Nishkama Karma Yogi, although seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping and breathing, always knows that only the material senses are interacting with their objects and that he is aloof from them. What does material senses means? Every time we change the body, we have a new set of senses. Sense of smell, taste, hearing, everything, seeing. So accordingly, we have a different set of eyes, nose, ears, different body, human beings and animals, they have different sense objects. The soul is not the independent doer of actions. The other doers who work in coordination with the soul are described in the next section. So actually, when we are provided the body, it has the body has sense objects like ears, nose, eyes, tongue, and skin. And these senses also, they are material. They don't belong to the soul. So when they interact, it appears that as if we are doing something. Having said that the Karma Yogi is not the doer of actions, yet does actions, Krishna will now explain that such a yogi acts for the sake of the Supreme Lord. So how he is able to detach from the work when he sets a higher goal? Brahmanyadaya karmani sangam tyakva karodiya lipyate na sapapena padmapattam ivambasa. Krishna explains it in the analogy. One who offers the results of his actions to the Supreme. while performing his duties without attachment, is unaffected by the sins in his actions. Any action you do, there is some element of sin. Something can always go wrong in the action, and naturally the results also will be not as expected. But what is he doing? He is performing his duties with it. He is always conscious that I am working for a higher purpose. So even if I'm not doing the work properly, I try to improve the work. My always the motive is to please the higher uh, Lord. Then he analogy is given just like the lotus leaf. The lotus leaf is in contact with dirty water because the lotus grows in a pond which is stationary. If it's a moving water, the lotus cannot grow. So naturally, the lotus grows in a stagnant water, but because the water is stagnant, it becomes dirty. But the lotus leaf is coated with some wax such that the water doesn't touch it. And at the same time, the lotus is always looking towards the sun. And because it is absorbing energy from the sun, it is the most beautiful flower. So, so this lotus is like the soul, and the leaf is like the body. So a person who knows that he is spirit, soul, and not the body, thus detached, how is he still perform work? So why do we have to do work in this world? For purification. The Karma Yoga is act with body, mind, intelligence, and the senses without attachment, only for the purpose of purification. Atma Shuddhaye. They understand that the same work which is binding us to the three modes can liberate us if we do it with proper consciousness. A Karma Yogi attains unadulterated peace, Naishtikim Shantim. So we are all seeking for peace. We want to be happy, and that is possible when we are peaceful. Peaceful means we are in alignment with our original nature. And that is possible for eternal peace is possible for a Karma Yogi who is always working for a higher purpose. By giving up results of all activities, karma, phalam, tyaktva. Whereas a karmi means who is working always for himself, is greedy for the results, becomes entangled. Greedy means you know very well that I am not the only doer, but you think that I am the only doer and I will be the only enjoyer. Yukta karma phalam tyaktva shantim apnoti naishtikim ayakta kama karyena phale shakto nibhadyate. Performing action without attachment leads to liberation, and performing action with attachment leads to bondage. So this is very important. When action is done for a higher purpose, it's liberating us. But the same action, when it's done for a lower purpose, it will bind us. Same example: a person is working for the government, another is working for himself and ending up in the jail. So it is not the action that causes bondage liberation, but it is the consciousness in which the action is performed. So like Arjuna was also a warrior before the battlefield. I mean, before hearing Bhagavad Gita, and afterwards also he was a warrior. But his consciousness was transformed by hearing Bhagavad Gita. So we are giving this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita so that you can improve the quality of your life and your work. We are not asking you to stop your work. Of course, in some cases you may have to change the quality of the work. Krishna will now explain how the pure soul is the doer yet non-doer. That's why we talked about the lazy intelligent. One is the active fool. Active fool means whatever he does, he brings misery upon himself and others. Then there's the lazy fool. At least he is not doing work and not disturbing others. Then there's the active intelligent. This person is very active. He's intelligent in the sense that he's always keeping himself active, but still he is not happy. We see many times some person is very intelligent, but he is not happy. Why? Because he wants to do all the work by himself. But then there's the lazy intelligent who is able to make others do the work. He knows exactly what he can do and what he cannot do, and he is able to distribute the work perfectly among all the other entities. Krishna will explain how the pure soul is the doer yet non-doer, knowing which one can be detached, understand the supreme, and attain liberation. So one has to be have knowledge of the three doers. So what is the role of the soul? When the embodied soul works by mentally renouncing manasa, karma, sannyasa, all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates. The body is compared to a fortress. This fortress has 9 openings. We have 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, 1 anus, genitals, and mouth. So through these 9 gates, we are getting knowledge. We are getting information about this world. We are experiencing this world. But they can also become the source of happiness or distress, depending on how we utilize them. Um, Then what is the role of material nature? The Jiva, master of this body, does not act, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by his Swabhava, the particular nature acquired by the Jiva under the influence of the modes of material nature. So when we become contaminated by the 3 modes, we think that I am the doer, although material nature is the doer. Supposing you're watching a movie and in that movie you're seeing something and you think that I am experiencing that, then it is due to your false ego. So what is it I am doing and what is it the material nature is doing? This clear-cut understanding should be there. The soul can only desire. It cannot do anything by itself. Material nature has to execute your desire, but it also doesn't do it by itself. It is functioning under the supervision of the Lord. So how do we acquire this nature? The beginningless material impressions, vasana. All along we have been thinking that I am the doer, I am the enjoyer. So whatever we experienced in life, we think that I am responsible for that, or so and so is responsible. So this is how we create our swabhava. And identification of jiva with the material body and senses that impel to act. Although he cannot do anything, he thinks that I am the doer. Thus, the jiva may alternately be said to be impelled by material nature. In this sense, and Krishna reiterates his instruction, what is the role of the Lord? He is the Upadrishta Anumanta. He is always witnessing our desires and our actions, and he is sanctioning and not sanctioning some things. Upadrishta means overseer, Anumanta means sanctioner. So why a living entity thinks that he is the doer? Because of ignorance. The super soul can understand the desires of soul as one can smell the flavor of a flower by being near it. Because the super soul is always accompanying the soul, he knows exactly what is going on in the soul is desiring. And he sometimes fulfills them, sometimes doesn't fulfill them. But the man thinking that I am desiring and I am getting the result. The man proposes and God disposes without interfering with the desires of the minute independent living entities. But under the spell of ignorance, the living entity claims that the Lord is responsible for his conditional existence. So actually, the Lord is fulfilling all our desires. And we blame the Lord for sometimes. We say, either we say the Lord didn't fulfill my desires, or why did he fulfill my desire? You should have corrected me. You should have prevented me from desiring like this or doing like this. So Lord is neutral. He is giving us many opportunities to correct ourselves and work with knowledge. But we choose to desire in a certain way and suffer the consequences. So this diagram is explaining how the soul is desiring and the super soul is sanctioning, and material nature is trying to fulfill or not fulfilling our desire. So knowledge is enlightens us. When one's ignorance is destroyed by knowledge, jnana, that spiritual knowledge reveals everything as the sun illuminates everything. Once the sunlight is there, you don't need some extra light. Everything is very clear. You can see yourself, you can see the world around you, and you can function properly. When one's ignorance removed by knowledge about the living entity, material nature, and the Supreme Lord, one will take shelter of the Lord and attain liberation. So this is real definition of knowledge as we'll see in the later chapter. So one has to fix his mind on the Supreme Lord. Always his mind should be for, that's what Krishna will say later also, Manmana Bhava Madbhakto. It is the ultimate instruction of Bhagavad Gita, always remember me. And that involves tolerating temptations of the material senses and redirecting one's pleasure-seeking propensity from matter to spirit or from outwards to inwards. So we have to utilize our desires properly. Desires are inevitable, but we have to dovetail the desires and tad buddhayas tad atmanas tannishtas tad parayanaha gachanti apuna avrityam jnana nirduta kalmasha. When once, this is very important once, when one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in me, the Supreme. So our intelligence should be used to understand God. Our mind should be fixed on God. We have to put our faith in God, and we should take shelter of the Lord. Then what is the benefit? One becomes cleansed of all misgivings. All doubts will go. Whatever doubts you come across in life, they will one by one get cleared through knowledge, and thus proceeds on the path of liberation. One by one, he will eventually solve all the problems of life even before he dies. When one focuses on the Supreme, that would be the vision of people. So if one has, okay, then one may ask, if you are only focusing on the Supreme, what about your behavior in this world? Uh, will you become an loner in this world? So then Krishna explains about Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Kavishhastini Shuni Chaiva Shvapake Cha Pandita Samadarshina. A humble sage. Humble means he has fully knowledge. He is intelligent. What is he? By virtue of true knowledge. If you want to become humble in life, you have to be intelligent. People think a humble person is foolish. He will be exploited. No, humility comes through knowledge. Like the heavy fruits are there in the tree will come downwards. So similarly, a learner, what is he? How does he see the world around him? He sees a learner Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater with equal vision. He knows that all the living entities are progressing towards the same goal, but at the same time, people are at different stages. So he respects everyone, wherever they may be. He respects all these categories of people because some of them are in Sattuguna, some are in Rajoguna, some are in Tamoguna. So such people who are able to see that all are progressing to the same goal are said to be wise. Now, so such people are said to be in Brahman platform. Brahman platform means they are qualitatively one with God. They are with equal vision conquer both birth and death. So why is birth and death occurring to us? Because of our ignorance. Why do we, when we fail an exam? Because we don't have studied the subject properly. So having got this human form of life, if we again take birth and death, it means we have not utilized the human life properly. So, but once we start utilizing the human life properly, then we can overcome birth and death. That's what Krishna is. They are flawless like Brahman, thus they are situated in Brahman. So what are the symptoms of a self-realized person? He doesn't rejoice something pleasant. He knows that whatever is pleasant today can become unpleasant tomorrow. Supposing you're eating a nice sweet dish, you know later it will harm your health. Or doesn't lament for something unpleasant. So he, even something is unpleasant, he accepts it for his own purification. He knows that like a bitter medicine is there to cure a disease. And he is fixed in intelligence, Sthira Buddhi. Because he knows the nature of this world is always fluctuating and I should not be disturbed. Rather, I should see how I can move forward in life. So what does he do? Tolerates situations. He knows the signs of God, unbewildered, asammoda, situated in transcendence, unattached to material pleasure, enjoys pleasure within. Lakhyam Sukham. His goal is Akshayam Sukham. He wants unending happiness. How does he do that? He realizes the presence of the super soul with him. He's always accompanying me. He's always there to guide me. He is my well-wisher. So detachment from external pressures and through focusing inwards requires an understanding that material enjoyments are insubstantial and foolish. No matter how much you try to enjoy in this world, they're going to be temporary. So you take it. Yes, you cannot take salt forever or sugar forever. Little bit salt, little bit sugar is required. Similarly, you take it within the limits. But if you try to enjoy them beyond limits, then it becomes foolishness. So, yehi sansparsha jabhoga dukkha yonaya evate adyantavanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha. So Krishna explains why this sense enjoyment is ultimately distressful. The enjoyment arising from the contact of the senses with sense object is the source of distress. Because constantly we are changing our bodies. Accordingly, we have a different set of sense objects and senses. So there's always going to be a beginning and end. Such pleasures have a beginning and an end, O Arjuna. So the wise man does not delight in them. Rather, he tries to get happiness from the soul instead of trying to get happiness from this material body and the material world. Even if one knows that sense enjoyment brings distress, the urges of the senses continue to exist. So Krishna will advise to tolerate the urges. So we have to learn this toleration till the end of life. Shaknoti haiva yashodum praksharira vimokhanat kama krododbayam vegam sakyuktasa sukhi naraha. If one is able to tolerate means accept them. Don't try to attach or detach from them. Till the time of giving up his present body. You have to learn this science till the end of life. You cannot just like you learn some studies and then you give up the study and do learn something else. No, this has to be learned throughout life. What should you tolerate? The urges of senses arising from desire and anger. Vita, raga, bhaya, krodha. Raga, bhaya, attachment, fear and anger. One should become free. He is well situated and happy in this world. So ultimately, the purpose of this yoga process is to be happy in this world so that we can really think about our future. If you are suffering now, you cannot expect to be happy in the future. So better is to make your life happy now itself, this very moment. And tolerating agitations and retiring from external engagement that give superficial happiness are possible when one has a higher taste or religious happiness within. What is the solution? We have to have a higher taste, higher goal in life, and we have to get happiness from within. So Brahmabhuta stage, one whose happiness is inwards, relish inwards, and sight is inwards, is actually the perfect mystic. He is self-realized, liberated, and attains supreme. So what does looking inward means? We have to see our connection with God and connection with this material nature and other living entities. Krishna consciousness, however, being always engaged in devotional service, does not risk losing his senses to some other engagement. So he's always engaging his mind, senses, intelligence, and body in the service of the Lord. He's always occupied. And so then Krishna will talk about the next chapter about the Ashtanga Yoga process, the gradual process of using mind, body, and senses. Now, in conclusion, Krishna says, Bhoktaram yajnatapasam sarva loka maheshwaram suhridam sarva bhutanam nyatma mam shantim richati. This is a very important verse known as the peace formula. If you want to be peaceful, what you should do. You have to perform Bhakti Yoga. What is Bhakti Yoga means? Bhoktaram yajnatapasam, realizing that Krishna is the enjoyer and he is what is he trying to enjoy? All the austerities, yajna and tapasa, sacrifices. Throughout our life, we are doing some sacrifices and austerities. If we learn to dedicate that to the Lord, who is the ultimate beneficiary, then who is the object of worship of karma yogis and jnanis respectively, then sarva loka maheshwaram, that if you appreciate that Krishna is the proprietor, he is the owner of everything, everything belongs to the Lord. Not only this planet, every place, every living entity. And then Suhridam Sarvabhutana, and that he is the well-wisher, is always my well-wisher of all living, not only of me, but all living entities. Then how is he our well-wisher? Because Krishna is giving us knowledge of devotion. As Krishna is giving knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. So he is giving us this bhakti process to everyone. If we realize that, then we understand that God is our well-wisher. Then Jnatva Mam Shantim Richati. One who knows this attains peace, liberation from the pangs of material miseries. Just like the lotus leaf is in the water and it is the most beautiful flower. So like this, when we are in this material world also, we can be happy if we are focused on the Supreme. Just like the lotus is focusing on the sun and getting its beauty, although it is situated in dirty water. Even though we are in this material world, if our attention is focused on the Supreme Lord, then we can be happy in this world and the next. So there we stop. Can have any comments or questions?
Hi Krishna. So there are a couple of questions from Kirti Mataji. I will ask 1 minute. The first question is action in inaction and inaction in action.
So as we said, the desire is the root of all this, whether it's action or inaction, is dependent on the desire behind any action. So what is the cause for desire is ignorance or knowledge. If the desire is based on ignorance, then it's the cause for action. But the desire is based on knowledge, then it becomes inaction. So that is the whole crux of this, whatever discussions we had. How transcendental knowledge, it changes the desire behind the action. So action and inaction means even though you are not doing some activities, you are more productive if you do become a devotee. Sometimes if you are engaged all the time in devotion, you don't have time for doing other activities. That is known as, that may be considered inaction by others. They are thinking what this person is always chanting, reading Bhagavad Gita. What's his productive value in this world? No, it looks like he's inactive, but he's actually active because he's acting on the transcendental platform. That means action in inaction. He's inactive in one sphere, but active in another sphere. Just like you cannot expect the Prime Minister now to be in the swimming pool or somewhere here and there on the cricket ground or football ground. Why? Because he is doing a much better activity. So he is more productive. In fact, he's more active. So it looks like he's inactive in one sense, but actually he's active in a higher sense. So that's what it means, action and inaction. There are many ways to explain this. This is one way I'm saying. The desire or the knowledge behind the desire, it determines whether the action is reactive or it's a akarma. The other one was the inaction in action, which means he is fully active. He is a devotee, may be fully active. Like Arjuna was there, he's always killing. Throughout the battle, he was killing. But he was not getting any reaction because he is offering the results to, he is working on behalf of Krishna. The same example, when the soldier is fighting for the country, he is going and killing so many people, but he is given a reward at the end. So he is action, but it is inaction in action, in the sense that he is not going to be implicated by the results of the action because he is working for a higher purpose. So this is what I can say about action in action, inaction, action.
Okay, so there is one more question from Kirti Mataji. If in prayer I ask for something from Krishna, what type of karma is it if I am not attached with fruits?
So again, as I said, it all depends on the purification of the desire. We don't know. Sometimes we think we have a pure desire, but behind us, because of our past impressions, the motives are hidden. So better is to continue with our devotion, because we also don't know whether our desire is pure or impure. Whether sometimes we ask desires and get into problems. Like Draupadi wanted a husband will have 5 types of characteristics. So next life she got 5 husbands and she was bewildered. Why is it I should marry 5 husbands? But then God explained that in your previous life you desired a husband with 5 different qualities, and it's not possible to be had in one person. So like this, we don't know even how to have proper desire for the right thing. So better is we follow the footsteps of the Mahajanas. They are praying on our behalf, and their prayers are answered by God. So if we hear their prayers, like Kunti prayers, their Gajendra prayers is there, like that. If you hear the Bhagavatam, even Arjuna, you can see he's praying to Krishna in one way. So if you hear the Puranas and Itihasas and Ramayana, Mahabharata and all these songs of the Vaishnavas, then we know what is the real desire, what we should desire, how we should desire, and how those desires are fulfilled by the Lord. So, but right now we don't even know how to desire properly because we are mostly driven by ignorance and our past impressions. So better is we try to do devotion. Gradually our devotion desires will become so pure that Krishna will fulfill every desire. That's why we say Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyascha. The Kalpataru, the devotees can fulfill all our desires. Even we don't have to wait to see God. Even devotees can fulfill all our desires, provided we have developed the purity. And that purity comes through action. That action should be under the guidance of an authority or the scriptures. So that's what we are trying to learn, this devotion. First theoretically, then we practice it. then one by one, gradually the desires become purified. But even if our desires are not pure right now, at least we can imbibe the desires by hearing about the prayers of such authorities, Mahajans.
So the next question is from Jafrunisa Mataji. What is Ashtanga Yoga, Prabhuji? How to do it?
So that is the eightfold process of yoga. Now Krishna is going to tell Arjuna about the eightfold yoga process, because that is what is being practiced by everyone who don't want to surrender to God directly, because they have no knowledge about God. Then naturally they want to follow a process, step-by-step process. That's what he will explain next. But ultimately Krishna says at the end of 6th chapter that a devotee is better than Ashtanga yogi. Krishna is analyzing all these other yoga process also, because if you tell people ask to follow one path, they will ask why only this one. If you say Bhagavad Gita, they will ask why only Bhagavad Gita. If you say Krishna, then they'll ask why only Krishna. So that is why people, even if you say to do Bhakti Yoga, people will ask why can't I do Karma Yoga, why can't I do Jnana Yoga, why can't I do Ashtanga Yoga, because each of them has given some benefits. So like that, Krishna first will talk about Ashtanga Yoga to say that Ashtanga Yoga will help you to control the mind and senses. What is the need for controlling the mind and senses? But then Arjuna comes up and asks that, yes, you are saying that this Ashtanga Yoga will help me to control my mind and senses, but I find it very difficult to follow this Ashtanga Yoga. Then Krishna will go on to say that, yes, I understand it's very difficult. So therefore, if you do Bhakti Yoga and you take help from me, then it is possible to get the same benefit that you get from Ashtanga Yoga process. In any case, Ashtanga Yoga process means eightfold yoga system. First is Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pratyahara, that is Pranayama. First is Yama means what you should not do. Niyama means what you should do. Then Asana means sitting posture. First, unless you are seated properly, the life airs within your body will not circulate properly. Then there will not be mental stability. Then Asana, then Pranayama, then that is breathing, breath control. Because the breath affects your mind. The soul is floating in the air, different types of air, and 5 kinds of air are there. So unless they are in equilibrium, just like an aircraft is there, unless it is the upward force, downward force, sideways force, these are in equilibrium, it cannot move properly. Similarly, the soul has to be in synchrony with this life airs. So that is possible through pranayama. Next is pratyahara, where we are regulated in our activities. We don't eat too much or eat less, sleep too much or sleep less, or no recreation and too much recreation. All this is pratyahara. Then dharana, dhyana, samadhi. So like this, that will be seen in the next session. Ultimately, it will lead to samadhi. Samadhi means fully focused on the goal. And but Ashtanga Yoga process only leads to mystic powers. But if you fix your goal on Krishna, you can get the benefit of this Ashtanga Yoga process also, a much easier way.
Hare Krishna, just to add that I know a couple of people who are on this path of Ashtanga Yoga, and the path itself is a difficult path. Unless, like in comparison to Bhakti Yoga that we are in, ours is Susukham Kartum Avyayam. We are chanting, we are dancing, we are taking prasadam, we are dovetailing our senses in the service of the Lord. Whereas Ashtanga Yoga means you have to stop all the senses activities, and the yoga process is a difficult process. There are no further questions.
Okay, we'll end it here and meet again next week. Slightly long chapter. I hope we'll be able to do it in the 1 hour. So please join us for the daily sessions, Monday to Friday, 7 to 8 o'clock in English and Hindi. The same 5th chapter, we'll be giving more time and opportunities for interaction in the form of question and answers or any comments. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Yes, Prabhu, Parish, Pati Pavan.